This is my theory on the rise and fall of the heroic king of Conria. I'll also be discussing Kaya, the Black Serpent, Istaroth, the Primordial One, and a few others. There will be spoilers up to the Eternal version of 2.6. Let's start off with Kaya Alberic, potentially the heir to the Conrian throne due to his surname meaning ruler of the supernatural beings, either dwarves or elves, and his first constellation, Excellent Blood, denoting some kind of nobility. Dwarves in Norse mythology were created underground from the body of Ymir and later given consciousness by the gods. Ymir was a primordial god mentioned by Venti as having been sacrificed to create another world. If the primordial one was defeated by the second throne, then they could have created Teyvat from its body in a similar way. Istaroth, being one of its shades, may have been banished by the new rulers and spent her time in Teyvat and the Abyss, searching for a way to revive her creator. This could be the case, as her other name Tokoyo is from a Japanese legend that tells of a girl that was searching for her exiled father. In her search, she blinds and kills an evil serpent in the deep sea to save a young girl, and this lifts the curse from the man that exiled her father, allowing them both to return home. I think that in Istaroth's search, she gave the ancestors of Conria consciousness, as they had formed from the primordial one's body underground, similar to Norse mythology. This would explain their primordial gem, or primogem-like eyes, and why they refused to worship any gods, seeing themselves as equal or above them. Okay, so that's enough backstory to the theory on the King of Conria. Just to be clear, I think he was Kaya's grandfather. Kaya tells us that he inherited his eye patch from his grandfather, who was a pirate, and found a magical sword dropped into the sea by a god from Celestia. The sword controlled the wind and lightning, and was used to defeat a Hydra, a silver-haired banshee, and a wicked abyss dragon. At the time it was played off as Kaya joking around, but I think there is some truth to what seemed to be a made-up story. The sword sounds similar to the 9 ominous swords from the Legend of the Shattered Halberd books, which are full of references to Norse mythology, the dominant inspiration for Conria. These 9 swords were created from an iron meteorite that fell from the heavens. Each sword had powers from the 9 realms that the Celestial Emperor ruled over, like one of them created with the runes of the Fire Realm, being able to control fire. Strangely enough, we already know of 2 meteorites that crashed into Conria over 500 years ago, the ones containing Aether and Lumine. The most interesting thing about these swords to me was that they drain the intellect of their user, just like the curse put upon the people of Conria, minus transforming into a hilichurl. I think that though this sword gave the king the power to defend Conria and take down monsters like the Abyss Dragon, it drained him and slowly ate away at his mind and body, kind of like we see with Tepe and his delusion, or Kole and the Archon residue serpent in her. So, the statuettes are what set me down this path. They come in 3 tiers, and I think they tell the story of the King of Conria. The first or lowest tier is the gloomy statuette, and looks rather plain. The figure has 1 eye, what looks to be a knight's helmet, and a braided beard. The description states that this item was cherished like a holy icon, and would have been an important figure to the people of Conria. We're told that Conria worship no gods, so this figure being of the heroic king mentioned by Jean would make the most sense to me. I think this depiction will be set around the time that he found his sword in the depths and defeated the monsters that threatened Conria. His missing eye could be a reference to Odin sacrificing his eye at the roots of Yggdrasil for cosmic wisdom and the ability to understand runes, magical symbols that were the power source of the swords in the Shattered Halberd books. This could explain where the knowledge of Kemia and the runes covering the rune gods came from, though the price seems to have been that the Black Serpent of the Abyss will gradually take over the king's mind, a sort of deal with the devil, or temptation like the Garden of Eden and the Tree of Knowledge. I'll talk more on the serpent in a minute. Next is the Dark statuette. He looks a lot older here, with a longer beard, filled with golden patterns, similar to those on Chaos circuits found in Ruin Guards. I think this was when he was at the height of his popularity as king. The statuette is said to inspire courage and gives off a strange warmth like the shoulder of an old friend. The Abyss Twin and Dainsleif were probably on their journey through Teyvat during this time, leaving our twin in Conria with alchemists like Gold for potentially years. I can't see her passing up the chance to study an alien life form, and I bet she made some big discoveries being able to study them, perhaps even helping her to create Albedo. I think this statuette depicts the time before the sages tore open the Veil of Sin and allowed the abyss of the Void Realm to flood through. They probably did this to gain access to the original Irminsul tree and the knowledge it holds, as the priests of Salvan Dagnia and other nations did in the past. I think the Black Serpent was also imprisoned in the Abyss or Void Realm and influenced the king's mind to free it, finally gaining near total control once it was unsealed, which would explain the drastic change in appearance of the last statuette. The Deathly statuette takes on a much more sinister look, with the gold engravings now turning red, growing horns with a helix pattern on them, and being inlaid with two blood-red gems, one for the eye and the larger one for the throat or chest area. The larger gem reminds me of the crimson agate of Dragonspine, made from Joran's blood. The mention of using sacred blood by the Black Serpent Knights could hint towards them using energy from dragon or serpent blood to fight against the divine, as we see on Dragonspine that Joran's blood is the only thing that can melt the rime ice created by the Skyfrost nail. Though if the people of Conria really are created from the Primordial One's body, they could be referring to themselves, as they see their own blood as sacred. The gem in the eye reminds me of the glow the serpent gives off in the Battle Pass cutscene, and I think depicts the king now being fully corrupted or possessed by the serpent. It would explain his change in appearance, and naming his royal guard the Black Serpent Knights, even though they were supposed to worship no gods. The name the Eclipse Dynasty may be another hint towards this, the symbology being that Celestia represents the sun, and what eclipses it is the abyss consuming it whole, as many ancient mythologies used a similar explanation for the cycle of day and night. One such myth is of the snake deity Apophis, lord of chaos. He was the greatest enemy of the sun god Ra, and attempted to devour him each night, being fought off by other gods protecting Ra on his journey through the underworld. There is a primordial serpent deity from Orphic myth that I think fits the Black Serpent even better though, and her name is Ananke, the mother of Phanes, Aether, Erebus, and the Three Fates. She was also the sister of Kronos, Gaia, Nyx, and Tartaros. Ananke is the most powerful dictator of fate and circumstance, and is the personification of inevitability, compulsion, and necessity, as her partner Kronos is the personification of time. Being the mother of the Three Fates, she is the only being able to influence their decisions. She often appeared in Greek poetry, with one poem stating, "Even the gods don't fight against Ananke." So, if the Black Serpent is based on her, she's probably one of, if not the strongest being that exists in the story right now, and could be related to the Primordial One in some way. Back to the last statuette. Instead of the comforting and inspiring feeling the people got from the first two statuettes, this one is said to emanate an ominous energy, though the voice we can hear from it is said to be a strange comforting whisper. What it says is anything but that. "See, my child, all that lies under the throne of heaven shall be destroyed by upheaval. The eternal peace of the pitch-dark void shall embrace us all." This is probably the serpent speaking through the king at this point, persuading the people of Conria that the Void Realm devouring Teyvat would bring everybody peace, not mentioning that it would be that way because everybody would be dead. The term kenosis is a concept from Christian theology and seems to be almost the opposite of gnosis. Instead of gaining knowledge to become enlightened, you become empty like a husk or a vessel for God to enter into. So I think this could be what happened to the king and the serpent, at the end of his life. When the Abyss Twin and Dainsleif returned to Khaenri'ah, I think it was already under attack by the gods. This could have been why Lumine in the trailer seemed so upset, thinking that Aether had been destroyed with the nation too. Dainsleif, running back to the palace, likely went to save Kaya and his father from being killed, but I think Istaroth may have created a time portal, like we see around Teyvat, to transport them 500 years into the future, explaining how Kaya is from Khaenri'ah, but arrived in Mondstadt a decade or two ago as a child. She could have even slowed down the curse for Kaya and Dainsleif due to her powers as the god of time and links with the Irminsul trees. We've already been told that Istaroth probably helped Makoto with the seed of the sacred Sakura, and that it was breaking free of the heavenly principles. She was also the only one not to abandon the people of Enkanomiya, so I think her helping another nation in danger, even one that didn't pray to her, isn't too crazy of an idea. At the end of his life, the king would have been incredibly powerful due to the serpent possessing him, possibly being the one to kill Makoto and the god of the woods before the Sustainer found him. He may have even gotten a hit on her, as she is said to be dying and her arm looks corrupted. Quite poetic that the god cursing nations over thousands of years will become cursed herself. This does make me wonder if the Sustainer could eventually become controlled by the serpent as the king did. As the Black Serpent Knight tells us, the Majestic One's dark curse is inescapable. And I think out of the Sustainer and the Black Serpent, they describe the one they got their name from as Majestic rather than their enemy. This seems to have been the end of the King of Khaenri'ah, but I think his actions will have lasting effects on the world that we'll discover much later on. And that's the video. I hope you found it as interesting as I did researching it. Let me know if you have any questions or want to share theories or ideas of your own, as they're always fun to discuss, and I'm not overly attached to my own. Consider leaving a like if you liked the video, and subscribe if you want to know when my next lore video will be up. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.